Hello, everyone. Welcome into episode 156 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris. Thank you for joining. It has been a minute since I last recorded. In fact, it's been almost 3 weeks. Last posted on January 30th. So, literally my first show of the month. But in fairness, there hasn't been a ton going on in the ASU sports landscape over the past 3 weeks. But things kind of definitely ratcheted up on Tuesday, that's for sure, with some news, a big ASU men's basketball win. So figured I'd had get back in the saddle recording, and there's a lot there's a lot to go over, and you have new sports starting up too. So let's dive into it. So you see the title. After ASU beat number 13 Texas Tech last night and improved to 14-11 overall, are they out of it? Are they completely out of it, or is there still some hope left in the season? I'll say this. The Big 12 is good enough in terms of its overall conference strength, and ASU has, how do I say this? They have done just enough to keep themselves from completely being dead in the water right now, even with the win over Texas Tech. So obviously the win over Texas Tech last night was excellent. Even though the way they closed that game was that was a ASU men's basketball special right there. I mean, just completely he had what, like a 10-point lead. Let's share the screen. And to their credit, they were kind of winning wire to wire, right? Like they were up at half. Let's just go to the second half. I do not like this new update. Okay. You know what? If you watched the game last night, if you stayed up, like they really took a while they did not close the game out well. That's for sure. I should not have done it this way. But yeah, this was a bad idea. Okay, here we go. They were up. Mo Odom makes a three-pointer with 3:28 to go. They're up 11 points. They end up being up by 2 points late in the game. Bad passes, couldn't handle a press. It wasn't pretty, but ultimately they got the job done. Unfortunately, JT Toppin goes down for the Red Raiders, but that's unfortunate for him. I hope it doesn't affect his NBA draft status too much. But for ASU, Mo Odom again, man, 50% from three, makes all his free throws. Pig Johnson, 11 points off the bench. Truett with 13, and then Job continues to play well. This is kind of the win they needed. And I was listening to the replay of the call from Tim Healy, and he described it as their biggest win in Big 12 play in the past 2 years. And that kind of took me aback because I just thought about it as like, they definitely had a ranked win of sorts in the Big 12, and they did. The win on the road over West Virginia last year, but that wasn't even that impressive of a win. I don't think West Virginia finished ranked. So anyway, like Texas Tech is a much better program, and they beat them. And you know what? Like, it wasn't a complete fluky win, and they needed one of these. If we were ever going to have some sort of discussion of like, oh, well, you know, how could ASU kind of get back on the bubble and all this? Like, they needed a win like this. And I will give Bobby Hurley credit in this sense that, like, I did not think we would be now in the back half of February, right? That was on February 17th when the game was. In the latter half of February, sitting around, and actually there's still some modicum of hope remaining, right? It's not completely out of the question that you make the tournament, and you still have things to play for, right? Like, you're not where Utah is. At 14-12, 5-8 in the Big 12, you're not completely dead yet. And this is a weird feeling for ASU fans because if you have this exact record in the Pac-12, it's over. Like there's nothing you would only could get in if you won the conference tournament. So that's why I'm even bringing this up, right? Like their record isn't good. I'm not here to defend that. And honestly, like had they won that Oregon State game and they were 15-11 right now, the exact same results in Big 12 play, I mean, their chances would be so much better, right? It's just clear that didn't happen. Maybe you flip one of the Colorado games. If you had gotten that road win over UCF, like that would have really been this team actually like probably would be on the bubble right now. Let's just say you beat UCF on the road, you beat Oregon State at home, and you win one of the Colorado games. That's 3 more wins. You'd be 17-9 right now, and we would be having a completely different discussion about this season. But that's not how it goes, right? Like that's just not how it goes. The results are the results. But even with all those results, there is I don't know, 3% chance that ASU makes the tournament now. Like it's not high, don't get me wrong, but you got 5 regular season games left. And really the ones you have to look at are these next 3 because you can't the next Kansas and at Iowa State, like that's just I'll kind of get to those in a bit, but if you have any hope of making the tournament, you're probably going to have to go 4-1 down the stretch. Okay. That's going to be really tough, right? That probably means you have to win at Baylor, at TCU, which those are similar level teams or worse, right? Like TCU is like a bubble team and they're 16-10, 6 and like they're very similar to what ASU is. And then Baylor is worse. And I'm kind of surprised on the ESPN matchup prediction thing. It shows Baylor as being 81% to win. I don't see how a team that's 500 has been worse in Big 12 play than ASU can be that much of a favorite, but okay. And then TCU. See, TCU is having a better season and they're less of a favorite on ESPN. So that doesn't make sense to me. Regardless, like ASU is not a good enough team where you can just implicitly trust them to go on the road and beat Baylor and TCU. I mean, they didn't even blow out Utah when they played them, and Utah is the worst team in the league. And it's funny enough, the last time I recorded was after the UCF game, and I had basically had a little spiel where it was like, okay, like this team is not like a horrible team, no matter what happens with their record, right? And I think this season has kind of proven that out. Like they are not a complete disaster akin to what Utah is, or similar to some other bad Hurley coach teams of this decade, right? Like they are, in fact, if you're ranking all the Hurley teams kind of lined up, like this is probably a top half of team of the Bobby Hurley era. Now that's not saying a lot, but it's either like they barely sneak into the tournament, so that's 4 teams. I'm counting the 2020 team in that, or they're just a complete abject disaster. And this team is closer to the teams that barely snuck into the tournament than they are a complete abject disaster. Now they can't rebound for anything, but after the UCF game, you kind of hang tough with U of A again, then they pull away. And of course, Bobby complained about the crowd in that game. See, that's how I've just like skipped over a few Bobby Hurley rants in press conferences. But I mean, let's not be acting like the ASU community as a whole is clamoring for more men's basketball talk. I think it's fine to just check in every once in a while. But I missed that. They go on the road and beat Utah. I watched some of that game. That wasn't a particularly impressive performance by ASU, but they got the win, and then lose at Colorado. That was really tough. And that's when Bobby gets questioned about the rebounding and kind of has another little rant. And then quietly, they probably had their best wire-to-wire performance of the year. What is this? Against Oklahoma State 8 days ago on February 10th. And, Oklahoma State is they're 16-9 right now. Uh, they're a similar level team to ASU, but ASU beat them by 9 points at home. That was a good win. And you know what? Credit to ASU for taking advantage of the time off, right? They had a good bit of time. They had like a week off before they played Texas Tech. And they took advantage of a Texas Tech team that, if we're being honest, like Texas Tech had just gone down to Tucson and beaten U of A. It's only human nature to just look past this game against ASU. And ASU made him pay. Mo Odom went off. Jot played well, like I said. And ASU gets the win with one of probably the smallest court stormings I've ever seen. Now, granted, I mean, look, like the DFA attendance has been horrible this year. It was a 9 p.m. tip. So the fans who did get to storm the court got an intimate view of it, right? Like there weren't that many people there. And it's not that great of a team, right? So all of those factors, go into it. But hey, it's a court storming nonetheless. Tough year for Texas Tech's main sports in Tempe. It is pretty hilarious that shortly after U of A loses to Texas Tech, ASU beats them. Obviously you factor in like Texas Tech was looking past ASU. It's fair to say, but it's still a funny little factoid of this year. But you know what? Like my point is, like they're actually playing pretty good basketball. I'll just say like in the past 4 games, you go 3 out of 4. You win your homestand, and again, like I'll be honest, like I don't think this team is going to make the tournament. Like I think the most likely outcome for the rest of the year, they probably go 2-3 in these games. If I really think what's going to happen, they probably split the Texas road trip, beat Utah, play a close, kind of a close-ish game against Kansas where Kansas pulls away, and then they just get smoked against Iowa State on the road. And so that would have them at 16-15 overall. And in that case, you would completely need to just run through the Big 12 tournament to make the NCAA tournament. That wouldn't happen. So to answer my question in the title, no, I don't think ASU basketball is going to get back on the bubble. Like I think they've dug themselves too big of a hole. The loss to Oregon State is abysmal, and you understand why Bobby and Mo Odom were both pretty downtrodden after that loss, because Bobby especially knew that this team was pretty decent, but also didn't have an enormous margin of error. The West Virginia game was bad. And the loss at UCF was pretty bad. And then you can't get swept by Colorado. You can lose one of the Colorado games, but I mean, Colorado's been a worse Big 12 team than you, right? Literally, and 2 of their wins are against you. So, it's I don't think it's going to happen. Like, I think if you've really watched this team, you can see that like they're a decent team and they're not like a complete disaster, but you don't also look at this team and being like, oh, they definitely should make the tournament either. Now, again, the season's not over. They still have 5 games left. And if they do sweep the 2 Texas schools and they're at 16-12, on, oh my gosh, I'll just say a week from today, because the TCU, it's a Tuesday night game at TCU. Okay, that's why. Then you know what? Like, then we can really start dreaming, right? Because if you get to 16-12 and you have 3 games left, then you kind of think of it differently. You think, okay, we need to beat Utah, and then you would be 17-12. And then you think, okay, if we just split these games against Kansas and Iowa State, then you pick up another big win, and you wouldn't be punished that much for a potential loss, especially if it's a road loss at Iowa State, who's been better than Kansas too. Then you would have a win over Kansas. You would have a loss at Iowa State, but you would be 18-13. If you're 18-13 at the end of the regular season, then you will be on the bubble. you know? And so I guess the point that I'm trying to bring up here is not so much like, oh, ASU is going to be on the bubble. They're going to win the games that they should. All this, like, no, I don't really think that. But I think if you're one of the guys on the team, you now have like, because you beat Texas Tech, you now have a legitimate carrot in front of you that you can strive for, right? Like the goal of making the tournament is still on the table now. And it's you really need to be almost flawless down the stretch. And saying almost flawless in regards to the 25-26 ASU men's basketball program, like that's why I don't think it's actually going to happen, right? Like I don't think I don't think it's going to play out that way, but they have shown enough, and their remaining schedule is not so treacherous that you can actually like squint and be like, oh, like it's not completely out of the question. And you have if Mo Odom just gets hot, right? Like who knows? Like maybe he found his shooting stroke again and he goes off in these next two games, and then you enter the Utah game and things look very different, right? That's not out of the question. Um, so what I'll say is these next two games in Texas are really the turning point, right? Because you look at the last two games of the year, and you can't be in any sort of situation where you're like, oh, we need to win both these games, because that's just not going to happen. If you go 3-0 and then Kansas comes to town, then all of a sudden, like, then things really get interesting, you know. And let's just say you go 3-2, you beat the not unranked teams, and you lose Kansas and Iowa State. That would have you at 17-14. Probably not, but you are in the Big 12, right? That's the thing. That's the thing we have to remember with a record that isn't that sparkling, is that you are in the best basketball conference in the country, and you do not get penalized as much for a loss to a ranked team. In fact, uh, let's look where ASU is in the net and where they are. I hate how they. So ASU is 68th in the net rankings. They are between Oklahoma and ahead of Grand Canyon, who is 69th. So that's not that great, but again, like this can change if you continue to win games. In KenPom, Arizona State is 65th, just behind Oklahoma State and just ahead of Akron. So they are not in a great position in the metrics, right? But they're also not. They're just nipping at the heels just enough to where I can come on this show with a straight face and say, like, hey, like they are not eliminated yet. Now they have a incredibly narrow pathway to get there. Do not get me wrong, but the pathway was much narrower 2 days ago when you hadn't beaten Texas Tech, right? That's what the win over Texas Tech does. Because in order to enter the tournament as a team with a not great record, even coming out of a conference like the Big 12, is you need to have some high level wins under your belt, you know? And so that's where you kind of need to root for Texas and Oklahoma, unless they're on the bubble too, and then it's taking space from you. But I don't know. I'll just say this: like, I'm just happy that this season, where again you enter the year with Bobby Hurley on a lame duck contract, there's zero excitement for the team, and there have been some bad moments. Like the month of January was pretty dang bad for this program. Like there's no way around it. However, like if you had told me before the year that with 5 regular season games to go, they're 14-12 and the NCAA tournament is a remote possibility, I would have taken it, right? Like they are doing better than pretty much anyone thought they would entering the year. As sad as that sounds, right? Like don't this isn't a show where I'm trying to be like, oh, like things are turning around and all. And I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm just saying, just if you just look at the results and what they have left, and just kind of how they're playing, right? Like they might have just played their best two games in a row, you know, and this is a team, this is a group of guys that I think like Mo Odom has some pride, you know. Mo Odom is not trying to just like play out the string, you know, or be like a Jose Perez and jump to a pro league somewhere with regular season games to go. Like I don't, you know, and I don't like I think these guys like they want to compete. They want to give it their best foot forward. And so I think it's kind of nice that it's even throughout all the BS and Hurley having rants and his job future with this job. I don't want to even say in question. Like it feels like it's almost a certainty that he's going to be gone because pretty much, I mean, the only way he would stay is if ASU does pull off this extremely difficult feat of winning 4 out of the next 5 games and making the NCAA tournament. But this team has played just well enough over the course of the season and has look, if you asked me this 2 days ago, I would have a completely different output or outlook on this. But the win over Texas Tech does change things. You know, it changes things in that it creaks the door open. I would say the door was slammed shut 2 days ago, right? Even after the win over Oklahoma State, the door of any sort of like tournament hopes, any of that, slammed shut. You beat Texas Tech and get a win like that, the door is now creaked open and there's a little sliver of light that comes through. And then if you beat Baylor and TCU, then the door opens a little bit more. And it's like, okay, now you actually have some kind of hope, you know? And so, um, yeah, I and as it relates to Hurley, like again, like this topic is not about me saying that like, oh, he needs to keep his job, like they're turning it around. Like, no, no, no. The only way Hurley should keep his job is if they make the NCAA tournament. But that's a little bit more likely following the win over Texas Tech. I thought his article or the article that Doug Haller did about Hurley was interesting. Basically, how Hurley is he's not waving the white flag at all. He also understands kind of the situation that he's in. He still, I mean, he like if he does leave, like he will be coaching in college basketball somewhere next year, whether it's the small chance it's somehow still at ASU or whatever, somewhere else. But he's not kind of throwing in the towel. And so that's probably part of the reason why ASU is still kind of playing decently well, I guess, is because not so much that he's like, oh, I need to keep my job here. It's more so that like, hey, like other, high major schools, like I am coaching a competent basketball team despite so many headwinds. So, and I'll be honest, like I have been way less attentive to ASU men's basketball, and just in terms of just going to the games, I've been to 2 games. I was at the Georgia State game and then went to Cincinnati, so I'm undefeated. But I haven't been going to the games as much. I haven't focused on it. I mean, look, this is my first episode of the whole month of February, right? Like, if I was more focused on ASU men's basketball, I would have been putting out more episodes. So I'm not going to sit here and act like I've been watching this team with a super close eye, especially in the new year. But I want to be at this Kansas game, no matter what happens, right? For a few reasons. One, like I think I would want to send off Hurley. I would also want to see Darren Peterson. And after what we saw last night, like I think that it's actually a realistic possibility that ASU wins that game. And so, at Utah game, we'll see. That's a Saturday, but I think that all of this is just to say, like, it's been a competent product, and they've blown some games. They've had some bad games here and there. I'm not gonna, discount any of that. And the competence has led ASU men's basketball to be in a point where you can squint and say like, oh, if this goes our way, if we take care of business, then there's a chance that they're on the bubble, right? And so ultimately, to answer my question in the title, like, no, I don't think ASU men's basketball is going to get on the bubble. I think they'll probably split this road series in Texas, and that'll be the end of it most likely. But they have creaked the door open just enough. So let's shift focus to the other basketball team in Tempe, ASU women's basketball. They are on the bubble. They entered play against Iowa State today at 21-6. However, they are getting their doors blown off in Ames, so that will hurt them. Iowa State is a good team, but not a good. I mean, literally, they have the same exact profile, 21-6. Excuse me. Hockey is here. 20. So that's a bad loss. It's a road game. And hey, like they beat U of A twice, despite U of A's head coach talking about all the attendance. She's 0-2 against Molly Miller. Just want to repeat that. She is 0-2. They have a tough stretch. Like at Texas Tech is a tough one, and then BYU is a tough one as well for this team. So like their tournament hopes are definitely fading. However, like the team's they're going to win 22 games for sure because Houston's terrible, and they still have a chance to make the tournament. Now, I do think the Molly Miller era would kind of, or the first year of it, I should say, the first year of the Molly Miller era would kind of end with a little bit of a thud if they don't make the tournament, just with how they were undefeated for so long, and there's real buzz around the program, and things are trending upward. And that is true, that things are trending upward. But to not finish it off with a tournament appearance would be disappointing. But we'll see. We'll see how it plays out. And heck, like Molly Miller is kind of a women's basketball coaching. I think it's fair to say she's a celebrity nationwide. Like if you follow women's college basketball, you know who Molly Miller is. And so maybe that'll help, right? Like sometimes, networks do weird things with tournament bids and stuff like that. But I mean, if you've been following the bracketology at all, like Arizona State, yeah, I mean, this was 2 days ago, and they were one of the last 4 teams in. So they don't have a ton of wiggle room, and they're losing right now, and they probably have at least one more loss on their schedule. So they really need to beat Houston. If they lose to Houston and don't beat any, like, it'll be interesting to see what they have to do to get in. But hey, you know what? Like that's way better than they were last year. No one's arguing the overall strength of Molly Miller as a head coach in general. It would be nice to cash in with a tournament bid, but let's hope they bounce back from this loss tonight in Ames. All right, going to touch on a few other sports before shifting things over to football, where I'll kind of not only have one specific thing I'm talking about with football, but kind of just a few random thoughts in my head along with the schedule news about Texas. So I want to check in on ASU hockey. They've quietly been a huge disappointment this year. And I know that they've had injuries, okay? Like I get it. They've had some bad injuries, but it's late February, right? It's the back half of February. They have lost 5 games in a row and 7 of their past 8, with their only win being in overtime. It's been about a month, and they have not had a regulation win in a month, and they just got absolutely destroyed at Western Michigan. It has to be better than this. This program, relative to this competition, gets good funding. They have the facilities, right? Like they have the arena. Powers has been here long enough that like he knows the lay of the land. They've been able to bring in, fairly high level talent, right? Like, I, you can't really do anything about it this year, but like this has been just a really bad. The momentum has not been grown, and it's been ugly. And honestly, like they need to be better than this. And it shouldn't. I know there's injuries, but that shouldn't be a reason why you're this bad. To be honest, like, and look, I mean, this is a team that lost to Augustana twice. Okay, they're 13, 18, and 1. Like it has to be better than this. And so I hope that next year things turn around, but it's just disappointing where men's hockey is at. They like this is if I think people really want this team to be good, and like obviously, but like they're really wasting an opportunity while the Coyotes are gone, right? Like they are the highest level hockey team in the Phoenix area, right? And they get the financial support that comes with that. But I don't know. It looks like the Coyotes might return. Who knows? Like I've seen stuff on social media about that. Uh, they don't just have an endless runway of being the biggest hockey program in the valley. So I look like things need to just improve, right? And at the end, like I don't really care about these next 4 games. Like they're probably going to get smoked by at Denver twice. Like they need to win one of these Omaha games to not finish the year on a, oh my gosh, what would it be? A 9-game losing streak. So yeah, it's just disappointing. That's all I can say. That's the end of my rant on that. Speaking of Omaha, ASU baseball 4-0. And the other baseball, or Arizona, they weren't able to beat Omaha, which I found hilarious. And then ASU really torches UConn, hung 17 runs on them on Tuesday night. So it wasn't the cleanest sweep to say. Like I think they trailed Omaha at one point on Sunday, but they were able to get the win. With ASU baseball, it's just at this point in the year, it's really just about avoiding ugly losses that can weigh you down, something that this program has not always done. And I'm glad that, through 4 games, they haven't done that. So it'll be interesting to track them as the season goes along. But they are holding serve, and I'll take that with ASU baseball. All right. Now on to football. Interesting news yesterday as Chris Cartman reports that Texas asked to be let out of its home and home with ASU in 2032 and 2033. They will not be rescheduled. And ASU is changing that non-conference opponent to Stanford. As Chris writes, this is a consequence of the SEC moving to 9 conference games. It looks like, based on Chris's reporting, that the A&M series will remain intact. The way he's tweeting that LSU will likely cancel this as well. Florida already did do it, so it's unfortunate. It is kind of a side effect of the SEC going to 9 conference games. But I will say this: like this generated a lot of national attention, I should say, and the Andy and Ari show touched on it, and really not so much about like ASU specifically, but more so just, we don't like that teams are kind of maneuvering their schedule and backing out of these games. And you know what? Like credit to ASU for like scheduling these games. I know a lot of this was done by Ray Anderson, and also credit to this part of the credit doesn't go to Ray Anderson. Credit ASU football for being in a spot that a school like Texas is kind of concerned that like we could lose that game, and a few years ago, teams weren't thinking like that about ASU football, even looking into the future. Now, who knows what any of these programs will be like in 6-7 years from now? But it's unfortunate, and obviously they shift to Stanford, and I'm fine with them playing Stanford. I get it. Like you have to fill in the schedule somehow, and you need a power four level opponent. So I'm fine with it. I wish and I hope that this happens if Florida and LSU cancel. Do it just I understand it's not going to be an SEC program and unlikely a Big Ten program, right? Do a better non-con than Stanford. Okay, schedule like Louisville or Virginia Tech or NC State or one of these like ACC schools, because the ACC schools, they will need game, legitimate non-conference games as well. And so um, I think that those are the types of schools you should be going after instead of Stanford. But I get it. Like they obviously ASU and Stanford have a shared history at being in the Pac-12 and Pac-10 for years. I don't hate the Stanford move, and we don't know what they're going to be like in that time, right? Like they're bad now, but they have Andrew Luck as the GM, and he knows people in the rich alums, and it only takes a few uber rich Stanford alums to drop money into the program, and all of a sudden, all these awesome players are there. Now, Stanford has its own unique requirements, obviously, as we all know, but I guess like Stanford probably won't be as bad as they are right now, but it's not like Stanford. Like it's not like I think some people my age kind of think of Stanford as a better program than they actually are, because if you're 30 like me, or if you're a few years close to that, older or younger, like your kind of formative years of college football watching was the Jim Harbaugh Stanford teams, the first part of the David Shaw era at Stanford, where like those were just legitimately good teams. You had like Heisman people, guys going to the freaking Heisman ceremony. You had high level NFL draft picks. You had quarterbacks. Like you had some really, really, really good teams that like would physically dominate Oregon's, like some of the best Oregon teams. And so I think like some people my age kind of think of Stanford as that, when in reality, like those teams were the outlier in all of Stanford's history, and they're usually just generally not a good program. They've had some decent years in the past, and they've had a lot of really good quarterbacks that go there. But I think John Elway's senior year, they went like 5-7 or something, or whatever year that he got drafted. Like they are generally a bad football program. And so like, yeah, I can sit here and be like, oh, we don't know what they'll look like in 5, 6, 7 years from now. History tells us they're just not going to be that good. So on one hand, like you schedule an opponent that you can beat, and it is still a power four opponent. On the other hand, I would rather it be like a Virginia Tech or a Georgia Tech, or name your like Duke, North Carolina, North Carolina State, Pitt, Syracuse, even like just give me Clemson, whatever, like some of these ACC schools instead of Stanford. But I mean, not instead of Stanford, they are an ACC school, but different, better, higher quality ACC schools than Stanford. So you got to do what you got to do. But I mean, this was clearly planned, and so I'm hoping they. I don't know. I would be interested to see who they didn't, who they could have maybe scheduled from the ACC as opposed to Stanford, but it is what it is. That kind of wraps up. There's a few more kind of things floating around. I see that 4 ASU players got official combine invites. It's Jordan Tyson, Max Iannaccio, Keith Abney, and Keyshawn Elliott, kind of the people you expected. Unfortunate that a guy like a Miles Rouser didn't get an invite, or a Shimon Mate, or some of these other guys who were kind of late round prospects. But being invited to the combine isn't everything. In fact, sometimes it turns out to be a horrible thing for a player because they don't test well. So, but wishing luck and success to those guys in Indianapolis. And I'll kind of wrap up with this, like, kind of a thought that I had in this long absence of doing shows in almost 3 weeks is, now that like the portal is over, the off season for college football is really kind of like everything's more settled now. It just kind of came to me that like ASU foot like this is kind of where we want ASU football to be. Obviously, we want them to be like what Indiana is, or any sort of team where you're like legitimately competing for national championships. You're clearly like a top 10 program in college football, and no one would deny that, right? Like, obviously. In realistic terms, where ASU has been and kind of the respect that it has generated, like, this is why you hire Kenny Dillingham. So, obviously, the first year doesn't go well. You have injuries, you have some bad luck in close games, all these things, and they go 3-9. But you could kind of see, like, oh, okay, they're building something, right? The next year, you pop, right? Levitt turns out to be way better than you think. Jordan Tyson's a stud. Scadaboo is a legendary all-time player, and you have some other good players kind of scattered throughout that roster. Okay, so then you get to, you go 10-2 in the regular season. You beat Iowa State. You almost beat Texas. It's a memorable, awesome year, and like it was great. This past year, you enter the year with really high expectations, right? You have all these guys coming back, and record-wise, it's kind of a disappointment. But then you look under the hood, and it's actually a lot better than you think, right? Because obviously Levitt is out for so much time. Jordan Tyson is out for time. I think Jeff Sims started 5 games, right? And like Jeff Sims does a decent enough job in the Dillingham offense, Territorial Cup game excluded, but the Iowa State win was awesome. West Virginia, he played well in that game, etc. So like he kind of steadied the ship, and you turn what could have been like a 6-6 season. Because I remember how I felt. It was on Halloween, the day before the Iowa State game, and it was like, oh man, like Jeff Sims is playing for the rest of the year. Like, let's hope we can win one game. Like, good thing we already have 5 wins under our belt, so we don't have to worry about missing a bowl game or whatever. They go 8-4, and you were mathematically still in the race for the Big 12 championship, entering the final regular season game of the year. Didn't work out. You lose to U of A. Sucks, obviously, like all that. But you really like steady the ship. And with that, the way ASU was kind of talked about nationally, and it's like it's not like any one thing I can point to, but just like listening to college football podcasts and really ASU being able to retain Dillingham. Now, really, that was Dillingham just choosing not to leave as opposed to ASU like retaining him. But keeping Dillingham, this I missed, right? Marcus Arroyo not going to the Giants. Brian Ward staying. Hines Ward I feel like he's doing a good job on the recruiting trail. The recruiting is doing pretty well, right? And of course, having a really good a good solid transfer portal haul that a lot of people see as like, yeah, this is like a top 25 transfer portal haul. I've seen ASU kind of thrown around in some way too early top 25s. They've kind of like established themselves as a serious program, as a top 25 ish program in college football. And like, this is what we want as ASU fans. Like, obviously we want more. Every fan base wants more, but like, this is where you're like, okay, if things are running in good efficiency, if things are just kind of going well, you should be like a top 25-ish type program, right? Like, you have some things going against you, but you don't have everything going against you, right? And so I'm just really glad that ASU football has kind of come out of, the Levitt drama and him leaving and all, like, not having as good of a final record as what we would have hoped, right? Entering the year. And then, of course, the injuries change things. Like, through it all, you've kind of come out of it, and it's like, okay, like, we got 2 of the top 4 receivers in the portal. We addressed some other needs. We clearly have more NIL money to work with now, not as much as we would like. We brought in a quarterback that, while has not done like great things in Cutter Bully. He's proven enough, and you had people look at that and be like, oh, I can see what ASU's thinking there. Like I kind of like Cutter Boley, or like, oh, he showed some promise last year. And then if he's a complete bust, right? You have Dyer and Fetty in tow in the quarterback room, right? So like it's not you're probably going to have a pretty good draft, right? Like there is a chance that you get two guys drafted in the first round. Heck, like my Seahawks, like we're probably going to lose Tariq Woolen to free agency. If Keith Abney is there at number 32, like that's kind of a pick that makes sense for the Seahawks at 32. And heck, New England at 31, like would it really be surprising if the Patriots drafted Maxi Iheanacho at 31 overall? No. Now, again, it would be absurd if Tyson like goes top 5 and then Iheanacho and Abney both sneak into the first round. That lets it's like a 0.5% possibility. So I'll bring it up, but like I'll be happy if just one of those two guys sneaks in the first round. But it seems like they're probably both going to go in the top 2 rounds, right? And then you add Keyshawn Elliott later in the draft, and then maybe another guy, and then so like you add on to it. Oh, like they've had a pretty good NFL draft. They're recruiting pretty well, right? Like if you look at I'll just say, like, based on some things I've read, like, it seems like there's a few more 4-star guys that are going to come to ASU pretty soon. So, like, you kind of add all these things up, and it's like, oh, like, we're just – and heck, like, Texas canceling the series, like, that shows that they're at least considering ASU as like, oh, like, yeah, this is a team that could beat us. Like, if we schedule them, they are a program good enough to beat us on a given game day, right? And so it's just kind of making me thankful, like, okay, like we're through, because like when you're in the portal stuff, like you can't really rest as a fan, which sucks, right? I'm glad like these guys are getting paid and they have the opportunity to cash in on their value and all this, but like it sucks as a fan, and you're just constantly checking your phone, be like, oh, is this guy going to enter the portal? Like if you're a Duke fan this year, it's brutal. You go through the entire portal, and then on the last day, Mensa decides to enter in the portal, and you're screwed. And so, like, that stuff really sucks. And now, but once you're through it and you're on the other side, and it's like, okay, like we're as a program in a pretty good spot. And so, we'll see how spring practice plays out and the draft and all this, but it's just a good solid place to be. And now like we can enter the year, like going into the 2026 season, there's not these expectations of like, oh, we got to win the Big 12 or it's like, let's just see how it goes. Like we could be a pretty good team. We don't know exactly how good. We'll see how things come together. But you're not going to be the hunted anymore, right? Now you're the hunter, but you're the hunter that's like still in the top 4 programs of the Big 12, right? I still think most casual fans just think of ASU football as like, oh, like they're pretty good. And, Texas Tech and BYU, I think would be considered better overall programs than ASU. But then after that, like who's the program in entering 2026 that is clearly in better shape overall than ASU in the Big 12? People could say U of A, like, yes, U of A beat us and they had a ranked year. They went 9-3. Like, I'm not discrediting U of A. I think Brendan's a good coach. Fafita's a good quarterback. Like all of that, I'm not like they played really well. It's really, really hard for me to be like, oh, like they're definitely a better program than ASU is right now. I just can't. Now you could say they're equal, right? But I'm sorry, I'm not just going to be like, oh, they beat us in the Territorial Cup without Levitt and with Tyson going out and like other injuries. Like, oh, therefore they are 100% a better program. I'm sorry, like I'm just not doing that. Now, if they beat us again, then yeah, then tough conversations will be had. But I don't think the average fan thinks that. And like you could say TCU, like I think like in Utah you would have said, but with losing Whittingham and losing some of the players through that, like they're going to drop down perceptually. So who's left, right? Like Baylor, no. Houston, again, like Houston beat ASU. They went 9-3. Like they had a good year. I don't think I don't think if you're a Houston fan, you can be like, oh, we are 100% a better program than ASU right now. I just don't think that. Like, I think ASU really earned a lot of respect, and Dillingham really like winning those games with Jeff Sims to kind of keep the ship afloat and really kind of have a respectable season despite so many things that went against them. And just being in the top 25 poll a lot, I think that helps too. And so, um, I think, yeah. And basically, like, and this isn't about like, oh, which programs are best and all that. Like, that's not really what it's about in terms of ASU. It's more about that just like they have a general level of competence that they've reached. And with that comes a general level of kind of recognition. And I think the cherry on top could be the NFL draft, specifically the first round, right? Like, it's within the realm of possibility that they get 2 first-round picks. And I've been checking mock drafts. Like most of them just have Tyson, but you see a few where maybe you're not sure to the Eagles at 23, or maybe Keith Abney sneaks in, or whatever it is, right? And so the combine will be interesting and all that, but it's just a good place to be. So, and it's what we wanted from the Dillingham era, right? It wasn't about like, oh, we're going to win a national championship. We're, like, sure, like that would be great. But ultimately, it's just about making ASU football a program where you don't look at it and you're like, why are you not doing this? What's going on here? Why are fans not coming to the games? Or why are you not trying to recruit in Arizona? Now they haven't been super successful in landing all these guys in Arizona yet, but they're trying. And so you look and there's just like fewer of these kind of loose ends to pick at, and that's a good thing. And it's shown in the win-loss column, right? Like we absolutely would have taken this 4 years ago. We would have taken, okay, like you have a first bad year under Kenny, that's fine. You win the Big 12, you go 10-2, you win the Big 12, and then some things go against you, but you still finish 8-4, right? We would have taken that, and in addition to the portal haul and keeping Dillingham and just kind of steadying the ship in these rough waters of college football, I think that you're just kind of in a pretty good spot as a program. So I just wanted to end with that. That's just kind of been something that's kind of been bouncing around in my head. It was just kind of hard to think that like in the moment of like the portal and, oh my gosh, is Dillingham going to leave or whatever, all these things. And then now that we're kind of removed from it, it's like, okay, like we're in a decent spot. So, and I was like this as a Seahawks fan, like this year, like I think people will look back at this team and it's, oh, they were dominant. They killed everyone. And like, that is kind of true. But at the same time, as a fan, I'm thinking, okay, how can this go wrong? Like how we can't lose to this 49er team. Like we can't lose to this Patriots team or against the Rams. Like, oh my gosh, we could lose or whatever. But like, it's sometimes just in the moment of a sports situation, you're not thinking about it in the most objective way. So that's why I wanted to touch on that about ASU football. And you know what? Something could change tomorrow, right? Like we all know that, but overall, like a pretty good spot for the program overall. And we'll see how the year 2026 plays out. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. Understand that the men's basketball conversation was not a prediction. It wasn't trying to sell anyone false hope. It was more of a discussion of like, hey, like, because you beat Texas Tech, things that were not on the table are now on the table. It's more of that. So, please like and subscribe on YouTube. Please rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils.